And then secondly, I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Shashi Lalvani, and he earned his PhD in chemical engineering. He is well published, and his research interests are electrochemical engineering, energy, and environmental materials. He is a professor and the chair of the Chemical Engineering Bioengineering program at Miami University in Ohio. Sorry. So, welcome.
प्यारा साथियों, सभिनी खां मिठी उहा ॿोली जंहिंमें मुंहिंजी माउ ॾिनी मूंखे लोली। ऐं जेतोणीकि मां सिंध में उहो ख़ुशनसीब न आहियां जो सिंध में मां पैदा थियो हुउसि, पर मां सिंधी माउ पीउ जो हिकिड़ो पुटु आहियां ऐं मूंखे पंहिंजे क़ौम ते, पंहिंजी सभ्यता ते ॾाढो फ़ख़ुरु आहे। Dear friends, elected representatives of government, it is my great pleasure and honor to be here. First and foremost is that the sweetest language is one that I heard in my cradle, and for me it was Sindhi. So it makes me very proud. And recently, and this is about 3 years ago, my wife Latika and I, we run Sadhana School. This is a Sunday school format for kids who grew up in India, kids who grew up here in America of Indian parents. And we try to impart them values, culture, traditions of India. And as a part of education about religion, the great Indian religion, Sikhism, we wanted them to introduce to. So we took a trip to our local Gurdwara, a temple, a Sikh temple in Cincinnati. And we told them our need, that we would like to bring kids to the temple and who would attend the service. And he said, well, do you know anything about our religion? And so both Latika and I, we spoke up. We said, well, we are Sindhis. And part of the Sindhi tradition is to appreciate Sikhism. And there are indeed many Sindhi Sikhs, although we are not. So we know Sikh rituals, we know traditions from that religion. And the priest, he rose up from his chair. He folded his hand and he said, thank you. So we really did not know what he was thanking us for. He said, our most religious sites, the Sikhism actually originated in Punjab, part of Punjab, which is now in Pakistan, in Nankana. And he said, those sites could not be maintained by priests from India. Indian Sikhs are not allowed to go to Pakistan and practice there. And he said that we have to rely upon Sindhi Sikhs from the Sindh province who run our temples. And that made me really, really proud. Now, we have heard about intolerance in Pakistan and the terrorist organizations and all the negativity that we hear about that country. Sindh is also not immune from persecution of minorities. And Professor Gulaga spoke very eloquently to that. But he also talked about the tolerance that still exists, the rights of minorities that are honored in Sindh province. Sindh is home to 93% of Hindus in Pakistan, and that's a very, very large percentage. So despite the fact that we hear about Hindus being driven out from Sindh, who are now trying to find refuge in India, it does talk about the tolerance, the human rights support that Hindus and other minorities in Sindh do enjoy to some extent. Now, what the the portrait of Sindh I have is one that I've inherited from my parents and from other Hindu Sindhis who fled Sindh during the time of partition. By and large, most Hindus who left Sindh were not due to the reason that there were conflicts between Sindhi Muslims and Sindhi Hindus, but it had to do with the fact that Muslims who were displaced from India and came to Sindh wanted to, quote unquote, take revenge upon Hindus. So, in a way, we were driven out from Sindh by refugee Muslims from India. And that's the story I hear not only from my parents, but our extended family, other Hindu friends, their parents. And many of these stories have not really been well chronicled. And that's something that we really need to work on. My father, his best friend was Hizbullah Qazi, and I have shared a story about him. I wrote a little note about it for my children, and I shared it with Sufi Munawar Lagari. And this was a bond that they enjoyed, that my father would take him to the Hindu temple in Halani in central Sindh. And those are the things that you don't hear about it now. So, but what it tells us that Sindh could be a beacon of hope, beacon of tolerance, because it has that great tradition. Sindh embodies the two great religions, the Abrahamic religion, which was first brought to the subcontinent, to Sindh, and Hinduism. And then when I used to talk to my mother-in-law, Latika's mother, her best friend from Pakistan was Nilofar. My father, till the very day he died, he talked about his friend Hizbullah. So this message of love and peace that Sufi tradition embraces and endorses has continued on for a really long time. And the two greatest poets of Sindh of the last century, Sheikh Ayaz and Narayan Sham, and I want to talk something about them because they hold the hope. I like to look at things in a more positive way, no matter how bad things are. And we have examples. India and Pakistan went to war in 1965, and Sheikh Ayaz, he opposed the war, and he wrote a poem, and he suffered very dearly for writing that poem. And I know many in the audience know that. For me, it was a discovery. It was a discovery for the reason that there was, until about 5-10 years ago, an iron curtain between India and Pakistan. We did not get the news about about Pakistan, did not get the news about Sindh. And it was much later that I learned about this poem, and it's a really moving and touching poem. And so I'm going to read a few lines from that. And he wrote this poem for his friend Narayan Sham. And Narayan Sham had by that time migrated to India. And he says, He Sangram, Samu ar Narayan Sham, Henaja Munja Kolab Sagya, Bolab Sagya, Hu Kavita Jo Kaka Dharani, Para Munja Ranga Ratolab Sagya, Dhatu Basagyo, Dhol Basagyo, Hola Basagya, Honate Kia Banduka Harama, Honake Goli Kia Hanama. The poem says that on this side of the border, I'm standing, and across from me on the other side is Narayan Sham. We speak the same language, we look the same. He's a poet laureate, but I also know how to compose poetry. We are of the same soil. Our Lord is the same. Our fears of persecution, and he was referring to partition of India, we have suffered from that too. I cannot lift a gun at him. I cannot shoot at him. And Pakistan at the time was suffering from dictatorship. and he was sent to prison for writing this poem. And that shows the courage that Sheikh Ayaz had for standing up for his own people. Not only that, but more importantly for humanity. You have a map of Sindh on your table, and you can look at it. And Narayan Sham in exile in India, and he was in New Delhi at that time when he composed a poem. And I would read it again. I'll read it for you. And that refers to the map of the Sindh. Desande naksho sindhiriya jo, bas jagya inaja ye vichar, khilande khilande the achanak, varaji navavaraniya ke sar, desande naksho sindhiriya jo, bas jagya unaja ye vichar. Dhoi sawa choch kayavan, vasi jiya savan mih, desande naksho sindhiriya jo, bas jagya unaja ye vichar. Salan bad fital mandir mein jot achi jiya bare ker, desande naksho sindhiriya jo. Loosely translated, it says, a chance glance at the map of Sindh evokes emotions immense. Like the young bride immersed in gaiety and laughter, she suddenly realizes the desire immense for a lover. And that's how he felt about Sindh. So that's coming from an emotional level. But at an intellectual level, at an analytical level, the reason why we want to engage more with Sindh, and that's the argument that I would like to make. Both India and Pakistan are very similar countries. We hear about bad things happening in Pakistan. To a certain extent, that's also true in India. India is a democracy. Pakistan, I hope, would also become a true democracy. But there is a rationale why the two countries should be democratic. And that has to do with the fact that they are not both nations in the sense that we understand them when we look at the European model. India is composed of 18-20 states. People are diverse from north to south. They speak different languages. They have different cultures. Not only linguistically they are different, ethnically. They not necessarily share the same history. If we look at the state of Maharashtra, the capital of which is Bombay, and that also happens to be my home, it has a Marathi-speaking population of 110 million. Germany has a population of 80 million. Bengal has a population of 80 million. Bangladesh has a population of 110 million, and it is a country in its own right. Similarly, Sindhis, and I just learned, I thought there were 35 million, but I'm happy to know that we are 50 million. So I'm not advocating the case for separatism, because that does not work, and we have seen that. We have seen that in Punjab, in India, where Sikhs wanted to have a separate state and they failed. And you are especially going to fail if you are a democrat, if you are in a democratic union. If you look at Sri Lanka, on the other hand, where Tamils wanted to have a separate province or a country, and they failed too. But when you have a dictatorship like Pakistan had, Bangladesh did secede from the union. So it is in the best interest of Pakistan to remain democratic. So I have hope, although things look bleak, but if we were to trace the history of Pakistan, I think gradually it would become more and more democratic for it to survive. Otherwise, I think it might be difficult. And I don't think any organization would like to dissolve itself. So the argument that I would make as to why US government or we here should engage more with Sindh has to do with the very reason. Because if you really want to reach out to people so that we can engage with them in trade and commerce, promotion of culture, promotion of our values as well. And then you deal with them at a level that they are comfortable with. It is not going to be in Urdu, it is going to be in Sindhi, it will be in Punjabi and Balochi and Marathi and Bengali. And so that's truly what I really believe in. And Sindh is a shining example. It has amazing history, a great track record. It is a province, a state, a country that has never invaded any other country. When we look at the ruins of Mohenjo-daro, one of the ancient civilizations in the world, you don't find armaments there. There are no signs of that. So hopefully the people were peaceful. So that's a message that I like to share with you. And but my love for Sindh emanates from my ability to speak the language. I feel very comfortable. I had my high school education in Sindhi. And on a sad note, what I would like to observe is that although Hindu Sindhis who have migrated away from Sindh and have done exceedingly well, they pride themselves as being Jews of India, extremely successful in business, in professional fields, are very rapidly losing their Sindhi roots. Their ability to speak the language is terrible. They don't understand Sindhi dialects. They have very little knowledge of Sindh's history, its language, and now traditions. And that really hurts me. It hurts me because I see over 3 million people who had such a rich history are rapidly fading away. And so I hope our Sindhis in Sindh would create or would foster an environment where we can make Hindu Sindhis proud of their heritage. Things that I would like to suggest, not that it is possible, but things like that. To build museums for Hindu Sindhis to come back and visit, temples where they could go and visit, the shrines need to be restored. These Hindu Sindhis have to feel proud of their heritage, and that will also happen when Sindh becomes economically more viable. Now, it is easier said than done, but Hindu Sindhis living outside Sindh are in a position, in my opinion, to contribute, to come back, the way the Chinese did, the overseas Chinese did to China, or overseas Indians are now doing it in India. People from Silicon Valley are going back to Bangalore and starting new businesses. Hindu Sindhis traditionally have been very great businessmen, and they've been trading for centuries now. There are records of Sindhis financing czars, for example. So I hope that would happen, and that's about all I have to share with you. Thank you for listening to me.